And here we are going into game one on Zelnaga Caverns. WhiteRa's big concern is Protoss. His big concern is WhiteRa is how is he going to take his third base? How can he protect that? And of course, Terran's is going to be how can he abuse mobility on this map. In the bottom left, we have WhiteRa spawning as the purple Protoss, more commonly known as the blue Protoss. And in the top right, we have ThorZain, the red Terran.
And if we do look at the Group A, both players are in Group A. We have WhiteRa, MadFrog, ThorZain, and Elfie. That, I mean, ThorZain, looking at paper, doesn't look like he can come out of the group, but I really do not think we should underestimate him, as he's been showing some good results recently, just like WhiteRa has, and this is definitely an interesting game. Got to see what both players do though. I'm not sure how WhiteRa does like to play on this map though.
And as we can see, ThorZain using a little bit of that adrenaline to help him up to the 250 APM range, throwing down a supply depot. Nothing too out of the ordinary at this point in time, but again, ThorZain is the sort of player who practices quite a bit. Would not be surprised to see him drill out a very interesting strategy in this game. And again, best of one, so players will be putting out their best show each time.
Yeah, and the barracks has been put down here. Totally standard, but we are seeing the probe move out now for WhiteRa. We'll be going up there to scout and just see exactly what's going on. He will scout that ThorZain doesn't really have any wall off or anything, but that's not really key in this matchup, Terran versus Protoss, that where compared to Brood War back in the day, it used to be so vital that you needed to wall off, especially because of forward gateways and whatever. But in Stacraft 2, that's not really a problem, as we do see the barracks in the main. The refinery also going down now for ThorZain.
So it looks like the probe of WhiteRa whipped around to try to pick off this SCV a little bit, but ThorZain will manage to get the scout off. Looks like WhiteRa is now heading up into the main of ThorZain, sees that barracks getting thrown down, so there will be an orbital command coming up any second. Meanwhile, WhiteRa has just finished his gateway and his assimilator, and I love this pylon placement. Any Hellions that get at the back of this base get blocked off, or any Reaper harassed, which is becoming increasingly popular in this matchup. And there's a cybernetics core going down, so very standard openings in these first 3 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what ThorZain does. He will be chasing now. Oh, look at this. He puts down the second barracks and the reactor on the first. That's quite interesting straight away. Opting not to go for the factory, as a lot of Terran players like to do. This is going to be extremely interesting to see how he's going to develop this build.
And it did look like ThorZain threw down that barracks and then canceled to make sure that WhiteRa's probe had left his base, and then immediately throwing down that barracks. And this is going to be very confusing for WhiteRa if he chooses to scout soon. This reactor takes so long to build that it looks like ThorZain is teching. It looks like there's no Marines at the front, so it's a very, very nice opening for Terran because it's so deceptive.
Yeah, and we do have the second gas been put down for WhiteRa, and this hidden SCV still in the base of WhiteRa. That I don't even think it's been detected at all, so he will be able to move down and scout out exactly what's going on. But if we look over at ThorZain's base, he has got the tech lab going, and it looks like we might be seeing some very early aggression from ThorZain, with probably, I'm going to suspect that he will be getting stim quite soon, as that's probably the vital upgrade needed on that tech lab.
WhiteRa's continuing to just poke around the front. He hasn't seen any Marines yet, but he just wants to be certain that anything that pops down that base he can spot and run away with in time. There's the concussive shell going down. It looks like ThorZain doing something a little bit more economically focused, probably a little bit more defensive, as like you said, stim is that key upgrade. And there is a robo and a double gateway opening for WhiteRa, so it looks like he wants to play it really safe, but man, ThorZain is feeling very comfortable right now, as he has full vision of everything going on inside WhiteRa's base.
And it looks like the SCV does go down, and he will be moving out. With this small clump of Marines and Marauder will be going down. The shells are almost done as well. Stim won't be done by the time he gets down there. That will be the second upgrade, but he is going to move down, see if he can do any pressure to WhiteRa. And with going for this robo facility, he's not actually going to have that many units out, and this could be, putting WhiteRa under a lot of pressure very early on in this game.
Yeah, WhiteRa almost certainly wanted to get an extremely fast observer out because, it looks like he just got a probe in the main anyways, and that is going to be so huge for WhiteRa to get that big amount of information. He ordinarily wanted to get an observer out quickly to scout, but that probe managed to save the day. And here's the big push, and there's the force field that gets thrown down, cutting those units in half. And look at this great positioning.
And that was a great reaction from WhiteRa. As soon as he scouted that with a probe, saw the second racks, he got the extra sentry out to help defend against this. And now there are no Marauders and Marines only left, so he is going to have to pull back. But at the same time, it looks like ThorZain deciding to go for the command center, and WhiteRa's probe still alive and does see exactly what's going on. And now it looks like WhiteRa is going to be on the aggressive side.
He knows that it's only Marines without stim and very few Marauders, so he's going to go ahead and push with this very small, very well-constructed force and take an early expansion of his own. Pylon going down, no Observer getting constructed quite yet. Looks like that Stalker is taking the early catch-up to this small band of units, but WhiteRa is going to have to be very careful because with that concussive shell, any units that are off-placed will get picked off.
Yeah, he's definitely going to move back, and he does decide to retreat with this small force, and he's going to go back down to his Nexus. A ton of bunkers been put down, 3 bunkers down, a lot of SCVs been pulled off as well. He's probably just going to keep them there just in case of any kind of form of aggression from WhiteRa, and then just transfer them onto the natural.
You know, Diapollo, one of my absolute favorite moves is exactly what we saw here from WhiteRa. You move forward with a large force and then don't do anything with it. You just walk right back home because it's made ThorZain build 4 bunkers. He doesn't want to lose a game of Starcraft in general, and he definitely doesn't want to lose one here on the big stage at DreamHack, so is making way more defense than it turns out that he actually needs. And ordinarily, I would really dislike this very fast RoboBay, but WhiteRa killed off a lot of units in that first push.
And this SCV is moving down. It will get destroyed on the gold and denying scouting, and he has no idea about this Nexus being put down, and this is looking really good for WhiteRa. He's having to send another SCV down here. He's going to move down to try and scout. He needs to find out what exactly is going on. He has not decided to use any scans on WhiteRa's base, so he's kind of clueless into what WhiteRa is going for.
Absolutely, and I mean, as we look in ThorZain's base, all those bunkers have prevented ThorZain from getting any additional barracks. This is 400 extra minerals, that's almost 3 more barracks. There's the engineering bay going down for ThorZain, clearly intending to get some upgrades. There's the salvages going down on 2 of those bunkers, and kind of an intimidating push coming out right now for ThorZain. His combat shield is half done.
And it looks like WhiteRa should be able to hold on to this. He has got the Colossus coming out. The Thermal Lance isn't quite done there, it's only halfway. And then ThorZain does decide to retreat and getting down a 3rd command center, actually, Day9.
Wow, I think this is a very smart play by ThorZain. Again, a tribute to his practice. After going into big defensive mode and knowing that he won't really have time to make those extra barracks because of all the bunkers he made, he just takes the opportunity to embrace his defensive position and go for the fast 3rd command center.
And that's actually going to really change into, well, going into the later mid-game. That's going to give him such a boost. And oh no, this probe is going to get in. It drops down a pylon, actually. The probe does die, though, and it forces the cancel on the pylon as the infantry army from ThorZain does see that. Did he actually scout the 3rd command center, though? That's what's important. And he did scout the 3rd command center, so he knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah, that's actually quite huge because WhiteRa now knows that there's going to be very little threat of a push happening for a long time. And look at this brilliant response by WhiteRa. Just throw down a forge, get a fast upgrade. You know your opponent cannot attack you for a very long time if that early 3rd command center is down. So WhiteRa doing the smart move and taking a 3rd himself, it appears.
Yeah, he will be taking down these rocks and, like you said, taking down the 3rd himself. When we look over in the base of ThorZain, he is getting +1 infantry weapons, which is going to help out a lot, especially now the forge is being made and upgrades are going to be produced by WhiteRa as well, just to counteract each other. Great play. But at the same time, as you were looking here, he is getting the double starport with the reactor on one of them. We're going to see a ton of Vikings out to actually help defend against all these Colossus which are being made.
Now this is a pretty extreme play by ThorZain. A lot of Terrans have been just really hating Marine and Marauder balls against Protosses because force fields cut everything in half. So rather than get more Marines and Marauders, just get a couple and then go for the extremely fast double starport. Very new school kind of way to play. But if we look at WhiteRa's force, he has these 2 Colossi, but other than that, he really does not have that many units underneath. So I think a very smart play, and there's the +1 from WhiteRa.
No, he really doesn't have that many units, even though the food count is basically right the same. And you know, he's going to come down and trying to do a ton of damage to this 3rd Expo. He's going to have to lift it up basically straight away, probably lose that mule's worth. Yeah, he's going to lose that. Nice play by WhiteRa, just keeping him off that 3rd, as WhiteRa doesn't really have his 3rd himself.
Yeah, and it does look like an SCV got all the way into WhiteRa's main and got yet another peek as to what's going on, but very smart gateway placement by WhiteRa. And that +1 is continuing to be chrono boosted. There's ThorZain retreating the command center, just continuing to mass up. And let's see where his force of Vikings has begun to compile. Oh, there is a whole bunch of Vikings pulling back. Looks like not too much damage has been dealt to WhiteRa's main force.
Yeah, he has 8 Vikings out now in total, and that's going to be really vital in the fight against WhiteRa. I mean, he has these 3 Colossus out. The thing that look at all these Zealots, how Zealot heavy the WhiteRa actually is.
Gosh, there's so many Zealots coming out. That is the one danger of going for some sort of 2-base Colossus play. You end up spending almost all your gas. So so the only thing you can really afford anymore is Zealots. Not that they're bad units, but again, it kind of can end up coming back to work against you with all the force fields you want to throw down to block off his units, also get in the way of your own Zealots.
And it looks like WhiteRa is going to come down once again on the third, denying it again. This command center has been made for such a long time, but he cannot use it to mine anything from this third base. Really, really smart play by WhiteRa, knowing that he spent that 400 on the command center and just not letting him use it, keeping these stalkers around and putting a lot of pressure on the ThorZain. But look at the Viking count. There are so many Vikings.
This is an awful lot of Vikings at this stage in the game. We're just hitting now the 15-minute mark, and there's 12 Vikings out on the map. ThorZain now finally going to retake his third, but I think it's showing amazing patience by ThorZain, the fact that he's not too concerned with overcommitting here, just playing very, very patiently, trying to get some of these Colossi off at a funky angle, and it looks like here's the cluster of Vikings. Needs to be extremely careful, and ThorZain doing the smart thing, has one Marauder over at the right side, and most importantly, a Reaper here to bounce between these two bases so he can check for any expansion, so he knows nothing is up in WhiteRa's base.
Yeah, and now WhiteRa's actually giving him room. He wants to try and get this Marauder out of the base. The Marauder is going to go and save everything, but the third base has been put down now for ThorZain, and this is going to really boost his economy. It's going to skyrocket now. Zealot charge is almost finished too. +2 weapons is being researched. Looks like WhiteRa is going to wait for Zealot charge to go, and then it looks like he will be trying to attack into ThorZain. It looks like he might not even bother going to the third and just going straight down the natural. This could be really interesting to see how this plays out.
Oh, the Stalkers are sprinting up, and there's the stim from ThorZain. Oh, so smart by WhiteRa. He just moves up, forces a stim, and pulls right back, and only one medevac out. She doesn't have enough juice to keep all those guys nice and healthy, so that is going to be a rough spot.
Yeah, that looks like kind of a mistake from ThorZain that he hasn't really got any medevacs. He only has one. He spent all of his resources in the production time on the starport for the Vikings. Now WhiteRa's going to go in. This could be crazy.
Oh, and the Colossi are moving up to the high ground. He's going to try to pick off all these production structures. And oh no, he walks right into the main. Oh, this is going to be so hard to deal with. And the force field getting thrown down. Oh my goodness. That is the kill zone for the Marines right there. All those Marines evaporating, but look at those Vikings one-shotting the Colossi with ease. But ThorZain is going to be short on a main base in a moment.
But he's used stims. He used stim too many times. All these Marauders are so low health, and there are just so many charged Zealots, and they're just going to rip through these, and there are too many Vikings. Even though they are eventually going to get these Colossus down, there's just no ground units left for ThorZain, and especially with no medivacs in large trouble. And at the same time, 4 Zealots are on the third base of ThorZain, and WhiteRa dominating this game.
Oh no, and it looks like ThorZain is out of main bases. And there's the final kill on the Colossus, but it won't be enough. There are so many Zealots ripping through everything. ThorZain trying to do some nice micro, but only has these 2 barracks on the backside. So this is going to be so hard to deal with. And look at this gigantic force. WhiteRa moving in for the kill, and another stim. And look at how low the health is on all those Marauders.
Yeah, they're so low health, and these SCVs are just tanking damage, but it looks like WhiteRa is going to take this game down. There's nothing ThorZain can do now. He's lost his third as well. He's down to 1 base only. It looks like he might be able to clean up this. I don't know, actually, if he lands these Vikings to be able to help, but I don't think so. WhiteRa is going to clean up this first game.
And there's the good game. WhiteRa taking the first win in Group A.
And as we were saying, it is only 1 game in Group A, and WhiteRa shoots straight up in first place in Group A, taking that game down extremely cleanly. Execution, waiting for that Zealot speed to be finished, and then going in, doing the damage, realizing that all the focus throughout the entire mid-game was on ThorZain's third, and WhiteRa, being such a smart, intelligent player, sends all his units directly into the natural, and then just walking into his main, and there was nothing he could do.
Yeah, I mean, very, very patient play by both players. I mean, I really liked how ThorZain was constantly checking if WhiteRa had a third, and when ThorZain realized WhiteRa didn't, ThorZain said, that's fine. I'll just wait until I can get a good opportunity to take my third. I don't need to rush it. I don't need to engage in an awkward angle, and that's really what WhiteRa was trying to force ThorZain to do. Constantly moving back and forth, and all it took was one little mistake by ThorZain, not keeping his main as protected as he should have. And the swing around from WhiteRa